What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Clair Obscur Expedition 33 yet again, and discuss if this is another wake-up call for the industry. Now, I see that phrase being thrown around quite a bit, and here's my maybe controversial take. I want to believe it, and I think we've seen it time and time again where games like this, I mean, look, I guess none of these games are ever exactly the same, right? But games that come out of generally nowhere to some people, they're made up of a small group of talented creators, right? They're able to kind of push things further than AAA. And I guess where it gets a little bit more controversial is like, is it a wake-up call? The answer I think will always kind of be yes, but like, does it actually do that? And every time people brings up, oh, okay, well, this is clearly going to be some eye-opening moment for the industry, is it ever really eye-opening? And I think the answer almost always is no. Now, I think it's honestly pretty simple in terms of where I want to go here and why. It's simply because like these things are actually kind of specific. You know, I look to a Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, right, that comes out earlier this year. And to be honest with you, that was another one. And you could actually look at Split Fiction. I think that's a good one. Every year there's a couple, and you say, okay, why can't we get more of that? And the answer is, well, okay, number one, you kind of do, like every so often, hence why we are constantly saying it. When Expedition 33 comes out and does this, we say, hey, why can't we get more of these? Well, we actually just got a couple other ones, different games, but we just got ones earlier. And again, it's not to diminish their impact. I'm not trying to look at it like, oh, well, these don't do anything. Small team, right? The talk has been like 30, 33 people. I think they had like outsourcing, but like general team, like the people in that studio, very small team. These are like former Ubisoft veterans as well as other places. Like this is just a group of people that were able to kind of do their thing. Like, and I mean, it's as simple as that, all things considered. It's a small freaking group. They have a huge passion for JRPGs. They love so much of the history. They love so many of these different kinds of things. And they were just kind of allowed to do it. Now, look, in my opinion, there is kind of like development lessons you can learn. The whole like padding versus not padding, right? Just kind of letting them get in and do the game, but not having to add any unnecessary stuff. Now, those are lessons that I always wish that these people, learn. But ultimately, and we'll talk about in a second, there's just a difference, between that AAA and AA. And in some ways, it's a great thing. In some ways, it's a freaking terrible thing. But, there are things to learn, like the amazing writing, the visuals, again, just kind of letting it have its room to breathe. It doesn't overstuff itself. It's there to do its thing. It tells an incredibly amazing, honestly, just world, right? It puts you in. It has these amazing characters, and it puts you in the lore of this world right away. It doesn't spend any time, dilly-dallying. It doesn't have 50 hours of side fluff content. These are all things that are good. I mean, this is why it's a Game of the Year type contender, at least for me. It's probably my favorite Game of the Year. It's so freaking good. Is that something that you can learn from? The answer, again, I think is yes and no, and maybe the no is the controversial part. Hopefully, you can take some of these, like, okay, what have we learned about, again, like how long a game needs to be? Well, here's the thing. I don't really think Expedition 33 needed to prove anything or is the proving game. I think we've seen time and time and time and time again, including, to be fair, from some AAA games as well. It's not like just non-AAA games do this. We've seen games all the time that are able to do it, that are able to just do condensed, like these games are the games and we don't have they're not overstuffed. And they do it. Does that stop the ones that weren't going to do it? No. And that's maybe the more cynical, negative thing in me. Okay, what are the lessons they'll actually learn? The industry will actually learn. And that's tough. Like, that one is, like, here's what I would like to believe in situations like this. I just want to believe that it inspires more people and more studios to do, like, what Sandfall, right, who's the developer, what they did. Because can you really take these lessons and can you bring them into PlayStation? Can you bring them into EA? Can you bring them into WB Games? Can you bring them into Ubisoft? Like, what are you exactly going to bring in there, right? I really believe, okay? I believe a big factor in a lot of these games, especially how special they are, how different they are, truly stems from the lack of people. Like, literally less people, I think, equals that. I've said this in the past before. One of my favorite studios, and they haven't made a game in a long time, but they're cooking there, is Giant Sparrow. Giant Sparrow, of course, Unfinished Swan, What Remains of Edith Finch. Those were the last two. Those are some of my favorite games of all time. That is such a good studio. I think that studio has like 8 to 10 people working for them. It is so freaking small. And I think like those are just like the pros and cons. Like it takes 10 years to make a game, but then when you get that game, it is truly something special. And why? Ultimately, I feel like it's just like the environment. I don't think 300 people at Naughty Dog, and like this is where, again, like there's kind of pros and cons of each. Like Naughty Dog is able to achieve a different level of certain things because of, they can attract like very high talent, and they have a huge budget, and they have a lot of resources, and so they can reach something that others can't. But then also, there's again pros and cons to that you lose something from that as well. You know what I mean? And what do they lose? Well, employee number 252, I don't think makes as much of an impact on a Naughty Dog game as the 30 people that made Expedition 33. It's a tight-knit thing. I go back, as I mentioned before, say Kingdom Come. One of the big things that was mentioned with Kingdom Come that, again, like you do have to figure out, I think, in some ways, but then also I just don't have a lot of confidence. So Kingdom Come, I believe, had an enormous amount of like kind of quality, right? I want to say polish. I mean, where there's still bugs here and there, sure, but Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you look at how unbelievably massive that game is, right? And the attention to detail. I really think it's the care, let's say that, right? The amount of care that is put into a world that's like 100 hours long. And then you can look at the visuals, you can talk about the quality of the voice acting. There's a lot. But the care and just how the high of a quality that game is. And you look at that studio, and the budget was the big story with that game, right? You saw like the news reports of like, okay, that this game, I believe the budget was say maybe like less than 50 million, say US dollars. Well, okay, can you actually do that here? Well, one reasonable, I think, counter to that was different part of the world. People are not as expensive to hire, there versus here. You could go into talent level. I'm sure that could eventually be brought up, but just simply like, can you have that amount of people here, same as over there, right, for the same price? And the answer would just be flat out no. So, some things are kind of unobtainable. And I will say this, okay, to kind of end this video, it's kind of what makes it fun. Like, look, I do want every game to be really special. And because you don't always get that. You get games that are very by the books. They are video games, but you know what? There are strengths to those too. Not to make it about like 50,000 games, but you look at Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I said this in my review of the game. There's just something like very checklisty about that game, but that's also like highly addicting. I don't know like what kind of chemicals they were pumping into that game, but there's something there where it's like it's a video game. It's a very by the books game. It does some things really well. It does some things very solid. It's not reinventing the wheel. It just has this ability to keep you in it, and it just has this very, okay, check this box, check that box, check that box. That is not the same thing as a Split Fiction, as a Kingdom Come, as a, even like an Oblivion remaster. You think about how amazing of a remaster that game is. Doesn't that kind of make it a little bit fun, though? And I guess I get both sides. Like, yeah, it does make it fun. It makes these games stand out. But on the other side of things, it's like, okay, well, then you have to kind of put up with the mediocrity, of the industry. Again, though, it's a controversial thing, maybe. You guys will have to let me know in the comments. But it's just kind of how I feel the industry goes. Like, they are a bunch of followers. Very few of them are leaders. And I think that is something. When you get a game like this, can you take something from it? Like, and again, I really go back to, can it just inspire like a few people? Not to get all like cliche, because I'm sure like those things have been said before. I'm not even talking about if it can inspire like one person that's like 16 years old now to grow up and make games. That is important, right? Because you have to talk about the future of the industry, and special games can maybe get somebody to say, hey, I want to do that, and then they could be making the next masterpiece 10 years from now. That is important, okay? But I just feel like there are very specific conditions, that have to be met in order to get games like this. They sometimes have to be in places like different parts of the world where you can control the budget better, or, you have to kind of lower that number and just, have these people. And that's what I want. I really just want more of this. And that's why it always makes me excited when I see, X blank devs start their own studio. A lot of times those games try to emulate the games that they came from, right? Like if they came from a Naughty Dog or they came from a CD Projekt Red, sometimes it'll be like a cheap imitation. And, it's just, it's fine, but it's not going to push anything. But honestly, sometimes you get this, like, who would have thought? Because the idea of like Ubisoft Online is not really a high up one. you tell people a year ago that these are a lot of Ubisoft devs, and people are going to probably write it off in their head, right? Because it's like, okay, well, you know what Ubisoft is capable of, but you know what? I mean, people are trapped sometimes. It's not just Ubisoft, it's anywhere. Sometimes just letting these people free, letting them start their own studio, small group, and just this very strong vision, that's how you can get a game like this. And you have to follow kind of a very specific criteria, to get to a point like this. So is it a wake-up call? I guess, but I don't think this is any more of a wake-up call than a Blueprints is, or like any game that kind of comes out of left field, and even bigger ones like Split Fiction is a constant reminder of like, why can't we get more co-op games that are unbelievably good like this with the kind of variety? Like, you get it several times a year. Like, it's not like it happens once every 10 years. You get it actually multiple times a year. It's just they have to kind of be specific. You don't really get these things from the big dogs, and again, like vice versa. You get certain things from the AAA ones that you don't get from here, and you kind of just pick and choose. So that's my thoughts on it. You guys let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.